Hey everybody, welcome back to Traditions Homestead. Today we are back in the kitchen preparing two of our favorite types of meat here on the homestead.
It has been a while since we've been in the kitchen with you guys. We thought today would be a perfect day because even though it's sunny outside, the wind is going crazy.
Yeah, we're getting about 45-mile-an-hour gusts today, and it makes recording anything outside almost impossible.
Recently, Kevin did some butchering of the poultry that we raise on the homestead, both the quail and some of the extra male ducks that we've had around. So today we're going to bring to you a recipe that we like to use for both quail and duck.
Yeah, we raise a lot of quail and we raise quite a few ducks, and throughout the years you guys have been asking us, what do you actually use them for? Because neither one of those are common things that most people just have in their kitchen. So, like Sarah said, this is one of our favorite recipes. It's super easy, but I guarantee you're going to absolutely love it. Let's get started cooking.
So we're actually going to be doing two separate recipes today for our meal. One is bacon wrapped quail and duck breast, and the other is breaded quail thighs and legs.
Yeah, both of them are amazing.
We like these two recipes together because the boneless quail breast is so nice wrapped with bacon, but it's not as nice when it's wrapped around the legs and the thigh because it's not easy to debone a quail thigh and leg. So we like to serve these and eat these together because it just makes sense and it's easier to eat.
So you can see today we're going to be doing 5 jumbo quail. Each of these we'll be cutting the breasts off of and then cutting the legs and thighs off of. And then we also have 2 duck breasts. I wanted to show you the size difference on these. This one here is from one of our Pekin ducks, and you can see how much bigger that is. And then the smaller one, that is from one of our Welsh Harlequin ducks. So if you're considering raising ducks for meat, I just wanted to give you some reference. Obviously, Pekin ducks are the main meat duck for like commercial food, and so there's a reason why. It's because they grow extremely fast and they also produce a ton of meat. So we're going to get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to part out these quail, and I'm going to show you exactly how we do that. Now, quail are really easy to part out. When I process quail, I cut the wings off as I'm processing because there's such little amount of meat on it, it's not really even worth saving. So what we have is we have the breast and we have the 2 legs and thighs. So you can see that the legs really aren't even connected to the rest of the quail. So all we're going to do for the legs is we're just going to take our knife and we're just going to cut the 2 legs off. There is a little bit of bone right here at the spine. You can just kind of break that with your fingers. The bones are fine. So we're just going to set those off. Those are our 2 legs and thighs. And then for the breast, in this recipe, we like to use them boneless. So in this case, we're going to actually fillet the breast meat off. We do that by just taking our knife and following this bone right here at the breast. I guess it's the breastbone. And then you can see that this just easily comes right off. And that is our piece of breast meat. We'll lay that off to the side. And we'll do the same thing on this other side. And a lot of times, because these are so tender, once you make that first cut along the breastbone, you can actually just take your fingers and the rest will just kind of peel off. And a lot of times that's easier than doing the whole thing with your knife. There we go. We have our 2 breasts and our 2 legs. We're going to do that for all of the quail, and then we'll move on to the duck.
Now that Kevin kind of parted these quail out, I'm just going to move the thighs and the legs just aside, and I'm going to prepare to start wrapping these in bacon. Now the quail breasts, I like to cut in half. There's 2 there. Because then when we wrap them in bacon, it's kind of like a really nice bite-sized piece of bacon-wrapped quail breast. So we're going to get that all done here. It doesn't take very long at all. And it makes the quail breast just go a little bit farther, which we really like. Now before we get wrapping those in bacon, I'm also going to cut up these boneless breast fillets from the duck. This is the Welsh Harlequin breast, and I'm really just going to try to make these a similar size as the quail breast pieces so they all cook about the same length of time. Now, duck meat is a much darker type of meat than, say, chicken. And not many people have had duck, so you wonder, well, what does it taste like? Well, duck meat tastes more like red meat, like steak, than it would, chicken breast. We have had Dove in the past, and we think that duck meat tastes a lot like Dove. So if you've had Dove, that's kind of what duck meat tastes like as well. Okay, so these are pretty much done with this breast. We'll move on to the pecan breast. You can see this is much bigger than the last breast that I was just working on. We'll cut this up and then we'll get wrapping it in bacon. We also have some home-raised bacon that we're going to be using with our meal today. This is our most recent IPP, or Idaho pasture pig. This go round, we actually took our pig to the butcher rather than processing it ourselves. Number one, to try out the butcher for when we are selling whole or half hogs to customers, but also we were just so slammed busy that time of year that we just gave ourselves a break this year and took the pig to the butcher. The butcher did a fantastic job. We're really excited to be able to offer whole and half hogs grown out to customers here in the near future. But anyway, this bacon is from them. So I brought out several different pieces, and I'm gonna just cut them in half. We're gonna be using half of a piece of bacon per piece of meat that we have here. Now you can see, I just wanna show you that this pile of pieces over here, this is the quail breast. These pieces over here, and these pieces are the duck breast. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started on those. I'm just taking half of a piece of bacon here, and I'm just gonna kind of wrap it up, maybe like a little sandwich, or I don't know. Take a toothpick and just poke it through all of those. It kind of looks like we're making an hors d'oeuvre. And then I'm just gonna put it on a baking pan I have here. I did grease this baking pan. It probably wouldn't have stuck without the grease because we're wrapping it in bacon fat. I just didn't want to take any chance that we would have a bad experience with that. So I'm going to start with the duck pieces and then move on to the quail pieces until all of the little pieces are gone. And maybe our whole baking sheet will be filled. Well, I do have a couple leftover pieces here. We're gonna use them in our second recipe. The second recipe that we're gonna do alongside this is breaded quail legs and thighs together. They'll bake at the same time as a bacon wrapped quail breast and duck breast, and it will be served together and it will be wonderful. So let's get started on those. I'm just gonna use a really simple breading technique. Many of you probably bread things the same way. First, we're going to be dipping them into just a flour mixture. I have some flour and salt and pepper mixed up together. Just going to mix in the seasonings. Next to it, I just have breadcrumbs with also some salt and pepper. Mix that in together. But we also need an egg wash that we'll dip it into. And I'm using 1 duck egg today. We love duck eggs. Duck eggs taste almost exactly like chicken eggs. They're just bigger. And the yolks are huge and fantastic, and duck eggs are really great for baking. So today I'm going to be using a duck egg. Look at how gorgeous that egg is. I'm just going to whisk that, blend that all together with a fork. And then we can start dipping these pieces. We're gonna start by taking one of our leg and thigh combos. We're just gonna lightly coat it with this flour mixture. Put it into the egg. Make sure that it gets a nice coating there. And then into the breadcrumbs. These will just be lightly coated. It'll be really nice. And then transfer that to a greased baking pan. It's just an easy peasy way to bread these. Well, both pans are ready to go into the oven. I'm going to be putting these in an oven that is preheated to 350 degrees, and I'm going to start checking them at about 15 minutes after they've been in the oven. What I'm looking for on both of them is that they're at least 165 degrees internal temperature. On the bacon wrapped breast pieces, I also want the bacon to be brown and crispy. Without getting burned, we want it to be crispy. It'll be so good. And the breaded pieces, I do want them to be a little browned. So they will most likely get done at different times, and that's okay with us. We'll just take it out and wait for the other one. So we're gonna put these in and get them cooking.
While the meat is in the oven baking, we're going to make a real easy side dish to go with this. It's kind of a version of my cowboy beans that I've showed you guys in the past, except those I usually make in a Dutch oven. These we're going to just make on the stovetop because our goal tonight is to kind of make an easier dinner. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to chop up an onion. We're actually going to just slice an onion. We're going to pan fry that a little bit here in a pot. And then we're going to add our beans and other ingredients. This is a real simple way to make some homemade baked beans, but they're going to be delicious. For tonight's beans, we're just going to use 1 can of white beans and 1 can of pinto beans. So we're going to put our onion in. Wish I had some of that bacon grease to fry these onions in, but that's in the oven. So I'm going to use a little bit of avocado oil. And let's get these on the stovetop. Alright, so we're just going to saute these until they're at least a little bit cooked. And then we'll turn the heat down and add everything else. Alright, so those onions are fried about as much as I want them fried. You can see them here in the pan. Just a little bit browned. And now we're going to add everything else for our beans. I'm actually going to turn the heat off for a little bit while we do this. Again, I've got 2 cans of beans, and really you can use whatever beans you have. These are just what we had here today. Black beans are good in here as well. But I'm going to just add the beans with the onions. Mix that around well. And then we're going to make a real simple barbecue sauce for this. We're going to use really 3 ingredients. We're going to use ketchup, brown sugar, and mustard. The thing we're going to use the most of is ketchup. Now, if you guys aren't making homemade ketchup from your gardens, I highly recommend that you do. Sarah has a great recipe. She did a video about it last summer. I think you guys will absolutely love it. This is our homemade ketchup. We need to check on that timer first, and then we'll get back to the beans.
Let's just take a look at these real quick. Well, to me, the bacon's not near done, and I don't see that the breading is browned. So I'm going to let this keep going. We're going to check it in a little bit and see if they're near temperature.
All right, back to the beans. So we're going to use about 3/4 to a cup of ketchup for this recipe today. We keep it in a mason jar with this nice little flip top lid. So I don't know, this is probably about a cup in there right now. I'm going to put most of it in, but probably not all of it. This is one of those recipes that I really don't measure for. I kind of go off just the way that it looks. Alright, so we're going to use our ketchup. We use about 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar. I did kind of a rounded 1/3 of a cup. And then we're also going to use some yellow mustard, probably about a tablespoon. And that's really all there is to making a simple homemade barbecue sauce. And you can use this sauce recipe for lots of different things. We're just going to mix that all together. And then we're going to turn this back on, kind of a medium-low heat until it starts to bubble just a little bit, and then we'll turn it down to low, cover it, and we're basically just going to let this simmer until our meat is done.
So I pulled out the breaded quail pieces, and they are up to temperature and they're getting a little bit brown. So I'm going to keep those out of the oven while the bacon pieces finish. I just want to show you what they look like in here. They're up to internal temperature, but I want the bacon to be a little bit more crispy, so we're gonna keep them in there for a little bit longer. And then the last trick I'm gonna do when the bacon wrap pieces are done is I'm gonna scoot them all over to one side of the pan, and I'm gonna put these breaded pieces on the pan so it can soak up a little bit of that bacon grease. It tastes so good when you do that. We'll just leave it there for a little bit while the bacon pieces cool, and then we'll be able to eat dinner. Well, the bacon wrapped quail breast and duck breast pieces are done. Let's take them out of the oven. They look pretty fantastic. Turn the oven off. Don't they look beautiful? So like I said, I'm going to push these over to one end of this pan and then transfer these breaded pieces over so they can get a little bit of that bacon fat flavor, because it just, come on, it just makes them amazing. And we've got some awesome home basically rendered bacon fat on this pan. Put these on here upside down so they soak some of that up. It's gonna be so good, you guys. Yum! We are going to let these cool for a little bit, and then we'll make up our plates and have some dinner.
Well, dinner is ready, you guys. It looks and smells amazing. So we're each going to try a piece. I'm going to take a piece of duck and a piece of quail. And then also, I'm going to try one of these extra pieces that we breaded as well.
Pieces.
Yeah, the
That'll
boneless pieces. So you guys don't have to see me gnawing on the bone of the quail here.
Wait, though, we will need some beans.
Now we need some beans. You guys, the beans turned out great. Not quite as good as when I make them outside in the Dutch oven, but you guys, this is a real fast, easy way to make some awesome beans in the house.
And we also brought out some pickled spicy dilly beans that I pickled last year. It'll really complement this dinner well because, you know, the bacon wrapped quail and the breaded quail and the beans, the barbecue beans are kind of heavy. So the pickled beans, the pickled green beans will just kind of cut that a little bit. It'll make it really good.
These portions, it looks like we're eating in a fancy restaurant. But I can tell you guys, when the camera goes off, I'm loading my plate up because this stuff is good.
Yeah, I'm having more than 3 tiny pieces of meat,
Right.
That's for sure.
All right, let's try it. I'm going to try the duck first.
You guys, it is so good.
Yeah, to me, duck really does taste a lot like steak. So if you guys like steak, I think you would like duck. It really has a very similar flavor.
Yeah, both duck and quail are very lean, kind of like rabbit.
Right.
So it really does help to have the bacon wrapped around it.
Right, add some fat.
Yeah, it's really good. Okay, let's
I'm
try
going to try the breaded one next.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if this is duck or quail.
Mine was quail.
Also very good.
Right. Yeah, especially with those bacon drippings on there. All right, last one.
This is quail, right?
Yeah, the quail is delicious as well. Quail kind of, to me, tastes somewhere between chicken and steak. I mean, it's still kind of red. It's a darker meat. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I think you guys would really like it. All of these are great animals to raise on your homestead.
Now, quail and duck are two of the birds that homesteaders often go to as one of their meats to raise on the homestead. So we hope that we've given you guys some ideas of how to prepare it and not to shy away from either of those because you're not sure whether or not you'll like it. It really is so good.
Right. Hey, if you guys are enjoying our videos, we hope that you'll hit that subscribe button before you leave. We hope you'll give recipes like this a try, and we hope that you'll think outside the box when it comes to your meals. Don't forget, the absolute best way that you can help us here on our channel is just by sharing our videos on all of your social media. And until next time, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care, and God bless.
God bless.